Hey everybody. So today I want to dig into the very real fact that some days managing your mental health, managing your emotions, managing your mind feels like a full-time job. And I want to acknowledge that other days it's easier. And I have noticed since I quit drinking a gradual uptick. We've talked about post-acute withdrawal syndrome and how heavy and hard that can hit early on, but that it is cyclical, and that the more months you have without alcohol in your system, your lows start to get higher and you have longer periods of time in between the dips. And you are developing tools to manage the dips, and everything's kind of an upward spiral. And that's true. And the thought occurred to me in the middle of the night because I wasn't sleeping, that sometimes we try to think our way out of thinking problems. So lately I've been all about using the thought models, and that is the most effective tool I think I've ever come across. But you can't always think your way out of a thinking problem. And there have been times in my life where I have experienced such low depression or such intense anxiety that I can't even do the things that I need to do to help myself. Going to the gym, taking breathing breaks, doing self-care, eating healthier. Sometimes you need a bridge over the abyss to get to step one of helping yourself. And it's really important to understand that you are not crazy. That when you feel crazy, that's something that's happening to you. That's something that's happening in your brain. We don't have any problem when we feel ourselves getting sick, saying that I'm getting sick. We know there's something wrong with us, but we know there's something wrong with our body. So if we're getting cold symptoms, we might go get a COVID test, or we might just cancel our plans, or we might go buy medicine. We don't overthink it. There's something wrong with our body, not something wrong with us. And yet, when we are experiencing depression symptoms or anxiety symptoms or whatever else is going on, we immediately jump to the thought that there's something wrong with us, like as our soul, our person, and not in our brain. And so today I want to dispel the bullshit myth that somehow our physical health is separate from our mental health. That physical health is something kind of beyond our control. Things just happen to us when we get sick. And that mental health is something that, is just a thinking problem and that you should be able to control. In fact, there is no difference. Mental health is physical health. Physical health is mental health. And we know that when we look at the opposite view. We know that physical ailments you can use visualization and meditation to improve symptoms and to get through cancer. We hear stories of people healing themselves using their mind. And those are nice, but not a for sure thing. But here's a for sure thing. The placebo effect is known to, it's a phenomenon that accounts for up to 72% of any treatment's efficacy, including over-the-counter Tylenol, including harsh chemotherapies, including other modalities. The placebo effect is known. And so when we take a drug, part of the reason it works, if it works, is that we think it's working and that we think it's going to help. So we have no trouble, making room for that when we think about physical health. But then when it comes to mental health, if you are feeling emotional or depressed or, brain fog or all of those things, that somehow that you're just crazy, but you're not crazy. Those symptoms are rooted in biology. So it's not just that you have a negative perspective on life. It's also And here's a list of things that could potentially be going on. It could be nutritional deficiencies. And I'll talk more about that as we go, but I'm just making a list now. Nutritional deficiencies, hormonal imbalance, including your metabolic hormones like insulin and glycogen, or your sex hormones, progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, or thyroid. So it could be a hormonal imbalance that is creating mental havoc. It could be undiagnosed infections. You could have something like candida overgrowth, which is fairly easily corrected. You could have a parasite. I've had a latent E. coli infection from a bad case of food poisoning that I got in Mexico. It could be something like Lyme disease. There's so many hidden infection things that can be going on, creating depression and anxiety. It could be allergies. It could be a genetic anomaly, people that have the PKU disorder. And there are other disorders with vitamin B. And, we know vitamin B deficiencies can create a lot of mental disorders. So if you're genetically predisposed to not metabolize that vitamin, then you're experiencing a lot of pain and suffering. And to think that you're the problem and that there isn't an underlying problem is miserable. It's absolutely miserable. And the other thing is all these factors come together, and that's the unfortunate thing, and also the good thing. The unfortunate thing is often it's not just one thing. Our Western medical model of thinking is very deconstructionist. So, we've got this symptom up here, and if we just do our algebra equation, we're going to solve for X equals what? We're going to get one answer. We're going to find the smoking gun. And often these things are a collection of problems. Like I've shared before, as I've gone through post-acute withdrawal syndrome, yes, I'm managing my mind, but I have also discovered with my doctor that I've got hormonal imbalances and thyroid issue and a latent infection. And, I've got medication that I was on that I'm trying to go off, and then I'm going back on, all of these things. So it's not just that I have a negative frame of mind on any given day, or that I can attribute all of my positive peppiness to, my own personal success. Sometimes it's raining in my head, literally, and some days it's clear and shiny. And I like that analogy because we all know we can't control the weather. And if you reframe your experience of your emotions as the weather, then it becomes a lot more forgiving to realize it's just raining today. There's nothing I can do about that. Oh, but I can bring my umbrella. I can wear my wet boots. I can make plans to be indoors or whatever, instead of blaming yourself for the fact that it's raining. If that makes sense. If you're feeling depressed and you're feeling anxious, it is not completely within your control. Again, you can't think your way out of a thinking problem. When we use thought models to try to interrupt our thoughts and create new thoughts and counteract the negative thoughts, we are using the hypothesis that thoughts trigger emotions, and that emotions are just physical sensations inside of our body that we can feel, and we don't need to be afraid of them. And then you tune in, and there is an ache in your heart, but it doesn't hurt as bad as getting your arm chopped off. Okay, so we use that, and it's highly effective. But going a little deeper into the biology, emotions are created by neurotransmitters. So thoughts are actually triggering neurotransmitters. Let's make the leap from mental to physical. Neurotransmitters can only function properly with an adequate supply of amino acids. They have to have an ideal environment to convert and do all the things that they need to do. So if there are other circumstances at play which is affecting your brain chemistry and interfering with the normal conversions of amino acids, then our behaviors and our moods and our emotions and our memory and all of that stuff will suffer. And so while a thought may be triggering an emotion, a dysfunctional brain chemistry environment means that certain thoughts might get stuck on repeat, and more helpful thoughts don't trigger, the neurotransmitter that's supposed to be created isn't created. And so it doesn't work. And so that's how we come to these days where we're thinking all the right things and still feeling like shit, and it's just not working. And we're spending all of our time stuck on repeat. Well, not all of that is within your control. If you shift out of, okay, I just need to think differently and keep that thought on repeat and think, okay, the weather in my brain is not functioning and I'm doing all the things to change my thoughts, but it's still not working, then you come to a place of acceptance where you can look at external things and what do you need to do. And that's what I'm going to talk about next.